3 days after gunning down 3 innocent people in Melbourne's CBD, Hells Angels bikie Christopher Hudson was on the run. Then his own bikie club turned him in. Retired Victoria Police Detective Charlie Bazina was one of 2 officers in charge of the Hudson investigation. Why did the Hells Angels agree to turn him in?
And they wanted to take the spotlight off them as an organisation, an outlaw motorcycle organisation, and the only way they could do it was to give us what we were seeking, and that was Christopher Hudson.
For the 3 days Hudson was on the run, a petrified Natalie Gullace couldn't sleep. Not only had she witnessed the execution-style killing of Good Samaritan Brendan Keilar, she then stood on in horror as Hudson swung the gun around at her and pulled the trigger. Thankfully, he was out of bullets.
I was convinced that he was going to come after me, he was going to send someone after me. I wouldn't leave the house. All of our blinds in our house had to be closed, day and night.
On the day Hudson was handed over to police, Kaera Douglas and Paul de Waard were both still in induced comas, fighting for their lives at Royal Melbourne Hospital. Kaera's surgeon was trauma and general surgeon, Associate Professor Ben Thompson.
If that bullet had been a fraction to the left, she wouldn't have made it to hospital.
How lucky is she to be walking today?
Matter of millimetres, really.
Kaera was shot in her stomach, but first the bullet went through her mobile phone in her pocket and then into her body. As it exited, it chipped her spine.
She had a bullet hole on the right side of her abdomen that went through her stomach, her pancreas, the first part of her bowel called the duodenum, and then into a really complex area around the blood vessels going to her kidney and the main vein of the body. You know, they're really fairly scary and terrible injuries.
Well, I have a lot of scars still from the incident. So the first bullet hit me here.
Paul was in an even worse state. Today you can still see the bullet entry point.
This is an entry wound and there will be an exit wound here.
Yes.
So it went past my heart, through my lungs. And then there's a big scar from surgery.
But it was the second gunshot that caused the most damage, with the bullet still lodged in Paul's hip.
The second bullet went into my hip, straight through a major blood vessel, and it hit a nerve, so I had some problems. I'm still having a limited movement in my right foot.
Were you certain or uncertain whether he'd make it?
At that time, we thought we may lose him. He was very, very unwell.
Paul's recovery was slow. He was in a wheelchair, then walking frame, and finally used a stick before being able to walk on his own. 18 months after the shooting, this Bravery Award was a bittersweet accolade for Paul, who accepted it alongside Brendan Keilar's young son.
To be awarded the posthumous medal, the late Mr. Brendan Keilar.
That was one of the hardest moments to see, because only then I realized that this boy lost his father, and that was really hard to process. Yeah, that was a tough moment.
Australia embraced Paul. He was quite rightly the hero of the moment.
People apologized, people said, "Oh, I'm sorry that this happened in our country." So all the support, that was really helpful for me emotionally to get to deal with this.
While Paul received support and praise, the public turned against Kaera, many blaming the young woman for the attack against her. It's why she's remained silent for so long.
Stricken stripper was one headline in the Sunday Herald Sun that bowled me for 10, that one.
Did you feel that the portrayal of you suggested that you deserved what you got or that you caused it?
Yeah, I did. Definitely, you can shrug it off, but with survivor's guilt, I thought I had to die every day to say how sorry I was and, you know, how grateful I was and, you know, to show my gratitude to everybody.
Honestly, for quite a few years, I did blame Kaera. I did feel that she could have stopped it maybe or reported him to the police that he had a gun. But that was so wrong of me, and I feel terrible that I felt that way, because she's just as much as of a victim as Brendan was and as Paul was.
In September 2008, Christopher Hudson was sentenced to 35 years jail, non-parole.
Do you have a message for Chris Hudson?
No.
Do you have anything to say to him at all?
No, there's nothing I want to say.
The madness of Chris Hudson has sadly and undoubtedly left its mark on so many, even all these years later.
The children of Brendan Keilar, they grew up without a father, and I haven't always been, having, been up and, being the best person, but it always definitely made me pick myself back up to be someone worth saving for the kids. Phew, it's the hardest thing. That's to be someone worth saving.
For Natalie, the cost has been great. Psychologically crippled by the attack, she struggles with everyday life and even blames herself for not doing more at the time.
Part of me died that day as well. My spirit, the way I used to be, the kind of person I used to be, I was confident. I would stand up for what I believed in. I would, help someone in need. But he's turned me into a scared, paranoid, just completely changed my entire life.
Every year, Paul de Waard celebrates his life on June 18. For him, it's more important than his birthday because it's his second chance at life. This year, he visited Iceland with his girlfriend.
That's a good one.
Why do you think it's important to celebrate it in that way, or to mark it in that way?
Well, for me, it is a special day. It changed my life completely. And I think it's important to remember that I'm lucky to be here and to make the most out of it. Yes.
Hello, how are you?
Today, for the first time, Kaera, Natalie and Paul have come together to share their profound experience.
I love you.
No one but these three truly understand what it's like to survive what they've been through.
Didn't know about you.
But there is one person missing in this reunion, the brave father of three, Brendan Keilar, who was the first to stand up to Christopher Hudson.
Every year, put flowers, sit down, talk to Brendan, say prayers for you too.
The plaque in the footpath at the intersection seems hardly significant in terms of a memorial, but June 18, 2007 was so terrible that perhaps nothing could really symbolise its true horror.
He wants you and me and Paul to live every day to the fullest for him because he can't. Why did it happen? Why me? Why did I survive?
If I maybe had have walked over there 2 seconds earlier, it might not have panned out the way it did.
The only thing that I wished for was that Brendan would have been sitting here next to me and survived. If I could change that, I would, but there's no way I could have prevented that. So that's the only thing that I really regret or that I feel bad about, that he's not here. And yes.
They stepped up to the plate and stopped it in its tracks. They saved my life. If they didn't do that, I'd be dead, 100%. They saved my life. I owe them my life.
Coming up, the comeback story of the year.
Well, I've been designing lipsticks for a quarter of a century.
Poppy King was once the name on everyone's lips.
We liked The Battler.
Until
her company is in the hands of receivers following a nasty and bitter dispute with her Melbourne partner.
But now she's smiling again and taking New York fashion by storm.
This is sensational.
That's next on 60 Minutes.